Okay, let's put this thing back together and see if it'll shoot. The first thing we want to do is get the bolt in, and I went ahead and put the new O-ring on the bolt here. I had to heat it up with a hair dryer, and that softened it up just enough to where I could work it over the lip there. So we got that in, and it goes in. But there's a spring. There's the hole there. There we go. Okay, there's two holes in here. One is threaded and one's not. The one that's not takes the spring. If you can see that. Get down there. Why the heck? There we go. Okay. Just making too much of it. And then as you close the bolt, you'll see the hole for the lug. You can see it there. And so we've got a tool here to screw the lug back in. And this want to have it so that it just barely clears and will close. Here we've got the cam plate here, goes in, and I can turn that just a hair more. That's pretty good right there. Cam plate goes on the cover for the cam plate. And we've got the two little screws. Okay, next is a hammer. If you look at it, it's broken off. About half of the ring here, this ring is broken off. And so we put it back on with the part that's not broken toward the bottom of the tube. This is upside down, so of course it's the top of the tube here. And goes our hammer spring and guide. Actually, we're going to put that into the end cap and then insert it here. And at this point, you can put it in there. This one's pretty easy. I'm surprised that it goes in as easy as it does. Try and line up that hole here. Okay, so now we have our hammer installed and we're ready for the trigger. We're going to put the safety on last. We're just going to go ahead and stick the trigger in here real quick and make sure everything works. Before we go any further, pin for the trigger. Okay, so at this point you should be able to cock it and pull the trigger and shoot. So let's see if it works. Cocks, shoots. Alright, now the moment of truth comes upon us, and what we're going to do is pump it up 8 times, fire it, see if it dumps all the air. So here we go. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Cock it. Okay, we're getting a little bit of residual air, so that means we've got to go back in there and do some more work on it. So I'm going to tear it apart and we'll see what we can do to make it dump at 8. Alright, here's the streak from hell, and we took it apart and redid some stuff in there, and now it dumps all the air at 8 pumps, which is what we were looking for. But, let's see if I can get this on sound here. If you can hear that. So, it's not taking air in unless you caulk it before you pump. Now, it holds air without any problem. Okay, well here's our cutout of a Benjamin. We're going to use this to kind of illustrate. It's the similar valving to the Sheridan. And I didn't put a check valve in or a check valve spring because they don't really affect what we're taking a look at here. But essentially you put the air in the compression chamber, the hammer gets caulked, comes forward, pops this valve stem off of the valve seat here, the air rushes out of here, up through the transfer port and out the barrel, pushing the pellet out. So if you're retaining air, there's a couple of things you can do. Depending on the spring that you have here, you may be able to take one coil off and reduce the length of that. That might do it. Some of the older guns have 2 washers here. In fact, this is a double washer. You can take one of those washers out, and that might help as well. Another thing you can do is shim the hammer spring here so that there's more force on the hammer when it hits the valve stem and knocks it a little bit further off of the valve seat. And then finally, you can, well, it's pretty hard to do much to the porting on these guns. About all you can do is that some guys will, if they have the right tools, they'll reduce the shank on this some from about here up to here somewhere. I think you can see that the dimension here where the stem goes through is just barely big enough for the stem to go through, whereas on this side of these holes the diameter of this part of the valve is larger, so the air can rush past this. It can't get past this part, and therefore it'll go out the hole. So what some people do, if you've got the right tools, is to reduce the dimension on this from just above the seal up to somewhere in this area, and that'll allow for an improved airflow. There's less material obstructing the flow as it goes past this and out these portholes. Alright, so we know that it doesn't pump when it's not caulked. We know that we caulk it and we can pump it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fire it off. And there's no retained air. And what I did on this is inside the valve here, I did take this down a little bit in this part of the valve stem and shimmed the hammer spring just a little. I don't like shimming the hammer spring because then it makes it harder to caulk. So now what we've got is this is a little bit anemic in terms of the power levels, because we ran it over a chronograph and it's shooting just slightly under 600 feet per second with the Crossman Premiers, the 14.3 grain pellets. So we may need to go back in here and revisit this. I think the issue is going to be the pump cup. And I don't want to get the adjustable pump cup in here because there may be some, if you recall, the inside of the tube has some damage down close to the to where the compression chamber starts, and I'm a little bit afraid of taking all the headspace out and getting a little bit more power, but that may affect the pump cup and damage the pump cup, because there were some kind of rough looking things going on down there in the bottom of the tube. So I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is, and it's no longer the streak from hell. It's now, I've laid my hands on here, and it works. It shoots. Like I say, it's a little bit anemic, but I'm going to accept that at this point as, just part of what you put up with when you rebuild a streak from hell. So that's that. Again, I want to thank Mac 1 Airgun Shop for supporting this rebuild. So with that, Streak from Hell is done and ready to shoot.